When it comes time for your dive off the high board, it comes time for you to take a corner on 2 wheels instead of the 4 that mom and dad assured you would always be under you. When it comes time for you to walk the line and leap out into the void shouting, what do they shout these days in skydiving? I don't know, but shout, maybe just screaming. When you're in that place, when it's free fall time, God's voice to you, God's encouragement to you, God's strength in your life, it doesn't come as a set of DVDs. When the Father wanted to reach us, the Father sent us a person, his Son, Jesus Christ. He still works the same way. When he wants to speak into you really deeply, often it will be a person or persons that drop into your life. And I'm here to tell you that plan still works. And we see it at the foundation of who we are, and it's deeply embedded in our DNA. We're not here to turn people and students in Berkeley into a labor pool for our grand design of ministry machinery. We're here to help people find what God has put in them and find ways to let it out explosively into the world. So we're not here to build a factory, we're here to build a greenhouse. To sow the seeds, and then the Lord gives increase and raises it up, and we see ourselves looking back in a few years with you guys everywhere, changing the whole world. And often what lights the fuse on that change is a couple of really special people that just dropped in. Speaking of special people, I am not Brian Orm. So if this is your first visit here, I flirted briefly with the idea of impersonating him, getting some cargo shorts and a t-shirt and extremely heavy dark glasses, but I didn't feel like I could pull it off 30 years later. So my name is Earl Krebs. I'm also one of the pastors here, and we were to have Brian with us. He became ill this weekend, unfortunately, and he texted me yesterday and he wasn't able to be with us today. We'll have him back at another time, so I'm going to do my best to fill in for him at the very last minute, and I'm hoping that we'll see his face again really soon. I wanted to tell you today to be really careful about reading the Bible. That is to say, don't do it. If you want to have a life that is under your control, that will achieve the probable results of the trajectory that you're on right now. If you want a life where all the dots are connected, where the next step is firmly in hand, where your to-do list is longer than NASA's, if you want a life where you're constantly patted on the back, where everything you do fits into grooves that other people have cut, if you want a life that is characterized by status quo, mainstream, and average, if you want a life that is filled with, I don't know if there's a word for this, but I call it high-functioning mediocrity. In other words, you're doing the same old stuff, but you're doing it way better than anybody else ever did. You're taking the average, and you've elevated average to a whole new level. You're taking the mainstream and we've made it just a little bit wider, and the status quo is so much better off for having me here. I am the champion of the status quo. If you want that life, leave the Bible alone. If you want mom and dad to agree with your decisions 100% of the time, don't pick up that book. If you want to be understood by people and applauded by people and be the life of the party in every situation, let it gather dust. Don't put the app on your phone. Leave it alone. Put in something else like Angry Birds and use that to take up all your time. But if that's the kind of life you want, if you want more of what everybody says you should have, if you want to have just an endless expansion of possessions and debts and houses and lands and all the stuff that constitutes the rewards that everyone says we're all in this business to get, then do not touch the Bible. Leave it alone. Don't do it. Now, I know in Berkeley, the way to get people to do something is tell them they can't. See, I took psychology too. You know, I understand why people have a struggle, you know, with the Bible. C.S. Lewis, the great Christian writer, once said, it's amazing, the less people read the Bible, the more it's translated. You know, I get that, and I think maybe there are a couple of reasons for that. People view this book, or this set of electrons, or this flash drive, or this phone app, in a couple of ways that can really make engaging it pretty difficult. You know, you can learn pretty much everything you need to know about life at the movies. And so every time I go to see something like that's a kidnap movie, you know, a kidnap movie, you know, you have to have certain basic elements in a kidnap movie. First, you have a lot of ski masks. The second thing you have to have in a kidnap movie is a white panel van to force the hapless victim into and then tear away from the curb with the wheel squealer. You have to have a lot of guns, preferably Beretta 92s, and you have to have the crucial moment where over a scrambled phone line, the evil kidnapper delivers the unreasonable demands to the victim's wealthy family. And then the SWAT team comes in on black ropes with their ski masks at the end, shoot everybody up, and the movie is over. It's almost as predictable as a rom-com, but the heart of the whole thing is the list of unreasonable demands. And in a way, sometimes people come to the scriptures with the idea that God is sort of the cosmic kidnapper in the sky. And the reason is, you did not choose to be born on this planet. You have been hijacked. You had no vote in your own creation. You had no vote on being here. You had no vote in living under these conditions. It's downright un-American. I mean, it's all been kind of thrust on you, and here this creator person way off in the somewhere sometime has decided, you know, let there be Mark, and let there be her, and boom, everything he says just happens. So, you know, here you are flying through your job or your career or your education, but you're in a world that you have influence on and influences you, but it was not of your design. You were just, this is a parachute drop, friend. You were just dropped in here behind the lines, and you're on your own. And now you have to live under a set of rules that you also did not design. How can this be in a free country? And what a lot of people assume as they come to the Christian scriptures is that essentially the Bible represents the cosmic kidnapper's set of unreasonable demands. This is what you got to do if you want a chance to survive. And you know, I get that. There are 750,000 words in this book. I know it makes you tired to think about it, doesn't it? And among those 750,000 words, there are 6,468 commands. Thou shalt, and thou shalt not. So I get it. I understand why it can seem like a set of unreasonable demands being pounded down on us from above. And you know, if that's all it is, why do we need any more rules? Didn't we have plenty before from other religions or dictators or governments or congresses and legislatures? Do we really need another 6,500 thou shalts and thou shalt nots? Doesn't the idea of being told what to do at the level of detail provided by 6,500 commands just make you want to run to this literature and embrace it with all your heart? One of the early Christian preachers was a man named Philip. And he had an amazing experience shortly after the resurrection of Jesus in a part of first century Palestine called Samaria. God moved in this part of the country in great power, and Philip was involved with that. They saw a lot of people open their hearts to embrace Jesus as their Lord and be filled with the Spirit of God. Amazing things happen. And just as this spiritual experience in the region was reaching its peak, God came to Philip and said, I want you to leave the place where it's really happening, and I want you to go to Gaza, in the southern part of the territory, a place where all there is a road. You understand what God is saying? I want you to go from where everything that you love is thriving the most to the literal, physical middle of nowhere. See, don't read this book. It's poison. It's poison to ambition. It's poison to selfishness. It's poison to everything that's all about me and not about God and other people. Philip arrives in this place. He's walking down the road, and in the distance he sees a chariot, a big one, probably surrounded by an entourage of officials and security members, and in it is riding an Ethiopian who is the treasurer for the king, or the queen rather, named Candace, who rules the nation of Ethiopia at this point in time. He's riding along in the sun, broiling, reading the Jewish scriptures, the prophet Isaiah. And Philip feels the Lord urging him to go up to the chariot. Now you need to understand that approaching a major government official's chariot, which is the black limo of its day, is about as safe as running up to President Obama's car. And the same thing that would happen to you if you run up to the president's car is about to happen to Philip. Kings, basically, it's a on-off system. You live or you die. Those are the two options. And he's edging a little closer to death. He goes up, and the Ethiopian invites him up into the chariot. And Philip can see that he's reading what would have been a large scroll, probably, reading the prophet Isaiah. And he's reading the part about a person who is innocent being put to death, like a lamb being led to the slaughter. What's more innocent and harmless than a lamb? And the Ethiopian's question is, who is this prophet writing about? Is he describing his own life, or is he describing someone else? And Philip says, he's describing the life of Jesus of Nazareth. And he lays out for him the good news about Jesus coming for us, taking all of the selfishness and sin and pain of the whole world on himself on the cross. Although he was responsible for none of it, he dies for all of it, and 3 days later rises from the dead, and now he's ruling the universe from the right hand of God. And the Ethiopian believes. As they're riding along, they spot water, and the man says, "What's to prevent me from being baptized?" He and Philip go down into the water. This African man is baptized. Philip is evacuated supernaturally by God to another location. And I love the way that the scriptures recorded. They say the Ethiopian man goes on his way rejoicing. Now he's in Jerusalem on his way back to Ethiopia because he's gone to Jerusalem to worship at the Jewish temple. So he has left in that configuration, and he is going back to the court of Candace as what's probably the first follower of Jesus on the continent. So the faith reaches Africa through Africans. Oh, stay away from this book. You don't want to do this. The scriptures open up to this man for just probably what are moments, and his whole life is pulled inside out. What I love about the account is Philip doesn't go to the commands. And when the Ethiopian says, "Well, who is this man writing about? Is it about himself or about somebody else?" Philip could have gone to the 6,500 commands had all of the scriptures been in existence in those days, and could have said to the Ethiopian, "Well, are you tithing? Are you only dating other followers of Jesus? Are you careful about what you see at the movies and what you see on that interweb thing? And are you tithing?" He could have jumped all over him, but instead of leading with the pain, bringing the demands, he goes to the one main thing. Who is Jesus to you? Because until that's embraced, nothing on the command side is going to make any difference, because it will have no traction in us. So some people see God as the big kidnapper in the universe, and the scriptures become his list of unreasonable demands. I was looking for wisdom on this subject online, which of course you can find more wisdom than you need. And I found a guy on that, you know the thing Yahoo has where you can submit questions and people pour their answers in? I don't know what to say here. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be insensitive to people and their questions. And I come across one writer, brilliantly incisive researcher, and he says, does anybody know if there is any research out there on the effect of reading the Bible to your houseplants? Will it make them grow? And then he goes on. This is paragraphs. I have searched and searched and searched all over the place, paraphrasing, and looking for somebody who's done some background work on this, and I just can't really find anything. He's all shot down that there isn't a houseplant survey in the latest issue of Nature magazine or a PBS documentary about same. He's all let down and bummed out about this, and people start replying to him. Well, you know, it could be that simply the carbon dioxide coming out of your lungs when you read the Bible gets on your plants, and the Krebs cycle goes faster, and photosynthesis speeds up, and this is why they grow. And he finally leaves the discussion with, I wonder if my professor would accept a paper with no verifiable measurement whatsoever. I wonder if that would work. I'm thinking probably not if he's in a class that I'm teaching, but I love his discussion, because this is kind of the other perspective that people can bring to the scriptures, which is to say that I'm kind of the houseplant in the melodrama. And so what I need to do is sit there and just kind of pour the words over my head. Maybe I'll do this with an internet Bible reading program, or I have all the promises in the Bible in index cards, and I randomize them like shuffling cards in Vegas, and I pull one out, or I have Post-it notes and I stick them to the side of my head when I walk to my job, or I push myself to read a chapter a day. Now, all of that's fine, but you've got to be careful. The houseplant model says if I just take the words and just bury myself alive in them, if I expose myself to them the way when a plant's exposed to the right minerals and elements in the air and the soil, it will begin to grow. I will automatically just begin to spring up and be like a tree planted by the waters. Now, you know, I would believe that if some of the worst people I knew weren't great fans of the Bible. I've met some of the nastiest, meanest, most low-down, hard, harsh, brutal people who religiously pour the words over themselves. Like showering in the morning before you go to work. You pour the words over yourself, and you know, now I've got God all over me, and I'm like fly paper. I'm Velcro for the blessings of God. They always talk religiously like that. Or I just get like buckets of words. I just pour the words. It's like, and the angels have like a fire brigade bringing me the buckets, and I just pour them over myself. And look, I'm transformed by my exposure to the Word. I hate you, but I'm awesomely religious. And instead of ending up being high functioning in mediocrity, what I end up is being piously unspiritual. I am religiously devoted to being the houseplant. The day Jesus rose from the dead, everything changed. One of the things that changed that doesn't get much press is a conversation that he had with two of the people who really were hoping he was the special one, really hoping he was the Messiah, really hoping that he was the Savior of the world and the Redeemer of the nation of Israel. As these two people, let down after his crucifixion, were walking away from Jerusalem, they were headed back to a little town called Emmaus, a place that's been lost in history. Nobody even knows where it is anymore. About the same distance from Jerusalem as the center of El Cerrito would be from here if you walked north on San Pablo Avenue. It would be about the same distance. And as they're walking along, a stranger joins them. Their conversation continues, and the stranger says, I've noticed that you're talking about some things pretty intensely, the original language indicates. What's the subject? What are we doing? I'm just kind of new to this. And one of them, Cleopas, not liking the stranger's question, pushes back, we would say. He insults him, really, and says, are you the only person in the universe that doesn't know what just happened? We had a prophet in our midst. His name was Jesus. He was from a nothing Roman garrison town up north. He has a questionable background, especially with his mother. Most of his brothers and sisters think he's insane. We don't know, but he just said things that no one had ever heard before. He healed sick people. He raised dead people. He spoke truth to power. He did phenomenal things to resist the brutal power structures, religious and military, that held Palestine under oppression. And we really thought he might be the one. And then the Romans, after his arrest, executed him by crucifixion in full public view outside the walls of the city, and our hopes were dashed. Now, some people have said that they went to his tomb, Cleopas continues, and he's not there. And some other people said the same thing, and no one can confirm it. We really don't know. And in essence, what they're saying to the stranger is, we're going home. And what I read between the lines there in Luke chapter 24 is, we're going home and we're never raising our expectations again. The stranger continues to walk with them. And after this tussle back and forth, Luke records this. And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. We learn later there something's awakening in them. Something's stirring down inside them. Something is changing. Something's turning over. Evening approaches. They invite the stranger to stay with them, to share a meal, and also to avoid the terrible risks of traveling these roads at night. Extremely dangerous. He gets at the table with them. Maybe it was a dining room table, I don't know. But he gets around this table, and Luke records he breaks the bread. And in that moment, they recognize him. This is Jesus of Nazareth. This is that prophet. This is the one that his family thinks is crazy. This is the one with a questionable reputation, but this is the one who spoke like no one else ever spoke, who did things that no one else has ever done, and who uniquely claims to be God's only begotten Son. He vanishes from their midst, and they are so touched and opened up by this that Luke records that they leave the house and that night go all the way back to Jerusalem at considerable personal risk to tell the core of Jesus' followers, it's true what the women who went to the tomb said. He's alive. We have seen him. We have insulted him. And they use these words, talking to each other about it. Did not our hearts burn within us while he talked to us on the road, while he opened to us the scriptures? Stay away from this book. This book will make you do crazy things. It will make you leave a perfectly safe house at night to walk 7 miles in the dark with wild animals and robbers all around you, to get back to people in a place highly charged with danger also, the city of Jerusalem, just to tell other people that the Lord that they think is gone isn't actually gone at all. He's actually more present than he's ever been because he is alive. Stay away from it. If you decide not to be a houseplant, if you decide that this is not just a list of non-negotiable demands, then what is it? You know what I see in the Philip narrative in Acts 8 and in the narrative of Cleopas and his friend in Luke 24 is that rather than a list of demands or a fertilizer product that we pour over ourselves to make ourselves grow with us being passive, the scriptures are really an invitation into a love relationship with God. Just as with Philip and with Cleopas, they are an invitation to a dialogue. They are an invitation to step into a relationship with God. Not to find out whether the Bible is true so I can see if Jesus is true, but because it works the other way around. The Jesus question is always prior. And if you place your life in real dialogue with this book, you should just get in your car in the parking lot and drive away now. Do you think I ever planned to live in Berkeley? And you know what brought us here? I mean, there are a lot of practical things, you know, mission organizations and faithful friends who supported us financially, and the wonderful people in Oklahoma that bought us these chairs. There are a lot of reasons, but what brought Janet and me here was a passage of the Christian scriptures in the 16th chapter of Acts. That was it. That was what we couldn't get around. If you engage this book, if you treat it as an invitation by God, a God who could just force us to obey, but chooses not to, a God who invites rather than coerces, a God who doesn't pound you down but wants to lift you up so that your love, reaching out for him, becomes so intense that you want to obey, you want to walk. It comes from your inmost being, and all you can say is, yes, Father, just show me the way. Just put the light on my path, and I'll walk in your way with all my heart, not just because I own your book, but because you own my heart. Recently, a study was published by Baylor University. I looked at the methodology of it pretty closely. It looks pretty tight. And it says that certain things are correlated with increased levels of Bible reading. And once I saw that, I had to find out what they were. And overall, what happens to you is, in the people they studied, which was a very broad sample, very professionally done, the more you're involved in Bible reading, the more you tend to become both more liberal and more conservative. That's what I said. What? Everybody knows that people that read the Bible a lot are just, you know, it's the Fox News crowd, right? I mean, isn't that right? That's the stereotype. But when it was actually studied by the sociologists at Baylor, they discovered that some issues become more conservative, some issues become more liberal, and you end up with people that transcend the categories. The categories collapse. Right. Could we call those people Christians? In other words, people whose lives have been flat messed up by engaging God through this book. People who are who are not uniform, who are not clones, which is what a list of demands produces, who are not fakes, which is what the houseplant idea produces, but people who are in love with God and love this book because it's a book produced by someone that they love themselves. When we were first courting, I wrote Janet love letters. This was, now I know it's hard for you to track with this, but this was in the time before the internet. It didn't just go from cavemen Google. There was this whole thing before that. And in that time, I would get long yellow legal pads, and I would write, and I'm a kind of a verbal processor way too much sometimes, and I would write my love letters to my wife while we were dating, because we were apart for a long time while I was finishing undergrad school. And so there was no, stay with me now, no email, no Facebook, no text, no Twitter, no mobile telephones. Everything was long distance landline. It was a dark time. I wrote these long page after page after page, because you don't see each other for months. There's, you have to kind of catch up a lot. Sent these to her, and she tells me, sometimes when she wants to threaten me, that she has kept these. And somewhere, I think in our garage, in one of the many boxes we have at this point that we are just labeled memories. The older you get, the more of those boxes you have. They're buried down in there, and they're there for two reasons. One is we never intend to clean the garage, and the other is that there's a bond between us. I don't have to force her to keep the letters. Sometimes I like to force her to throw them away. I don't even know what's in them, my goodness. But she keeps them because of the bond. If you get into that kind of bond with God, this book is going to trash your life. The same way it wrecked Cleopas and his friend, the same way it demolished that Ethiopian who knows what he faced when he went back to, so how was the trip? Oh, great, I'm Christian now. What? Stay away from this book unless you want a life that opens up like a flower to the plan of God, to something so much bigger than you thought of, so much greater than our little dreams and visions and our paltry plans and the little to-do lists we have on our phone, all of which are good in other ways. But a real engagement with this book is going to bring you so close to the heart of God. It's going to make you something there's no words for. And we might call that Christian. I'm going to ask you to stand with me, if you would, please, for just a moment. Our band's going to return to lead us in just a little more worship as we come to an end today. Let's just bow our heads together and have a word of prayer. Lord, we are grateful to you for opening up our hearts and minds. We just want to be in love with you. We want to be in love with you. We want the scriptures to read like those love letters. God, we know that rules and regulations can't change us, can't save us, and that neither can just sit in there. We feel your call, your pull this morning into a closer, deeper walk with us. Some of us maybe for the first time have no relationship with you whatsoever. Others that we've walked with you, but maybe we've just hedged our bets a little bit. We're going to step in all the way this morning. You know, as we have our heads bowed this morning, I just would like to ask you this. I feel like today can be a day when we can really put a stake in the ground about some things. And
if your heart today is this, I want to engage God this way. I want to put my dreams, my plans into God's hands. I want to step into something knowing that in a way I'm going to lose control, but I'm going to gain something so much better. I'm going to find that pearl of great price that was worth trading in everything to have. If that's you this morning, I'm going to just ask you to slip your hand up and put it down and just say, yeah, that's me. I want to make that move. I want to step into that circle. Just put it up and put it down. Thank you. Anybody else? That's me. That's me. Yeah, thank you. Now, our band's going to lead us in some worship, and as they do, if you'd like to have someone pray with you this morning about this commitment, pray for God to put His strength and power on you today. We're going to have people here to pray with you at the front and on the sides. I want to invite you to just begin to come as they start to sing. And we're going to believe that God is going to do something dramatic in you today. That this can be the day when we stop hedging our bets. This can be the day where we go all in and we say, yes, God, this is the kind of relationship that I want to have with you. This is what I want my heart to be. I want it to be close to your heart. I'm going to invite you to come and just let us pray with you and trust that God is going to give you the strength you need to take this step in the days ahead.